Oh. For Mesilla Valley News, Let's Talk Las Cruces. I'm Ernesto Garcia. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast and also our live streaming Let's Talk Las Cruces that we are having on this Wednesday, November 10th at 9 a.m. You're watching us live not only on Facebook, we also have our Mesilla Valley News Twitter, YouTube channel, and somehow this gets on my personal Twitter as well. That's fine. Thanks for tuning in. Our special guest will be Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales, and we'll bring him on in just a second. But as always, this segment is brought to you by our friends over at American Document Services, ADSLCNM.com. They're online at ADSLCNM.com, 300A North 17th Street in Las Cruces. Call for an appointment at 575-647-0060. American Document Services Management taking care of you. And on every Thursday is the free shred details that happen from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3. Please read the fine print when you go online to ADSLC.com. And the lobby is open at one customer at a time. They're still following all COVID-19 rules to make sure everyone stays safe. And that's what we want to make sure that is happening. We're getting a chance now to speak with Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales. I'm glad you're joining us. I know you're a bit on a time schedule, so let's get right to it. A lot of people have been talking about education, some of the changes coming up, and some new curriculum following social studies. Can you explain what we are expecting to see?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I want to say thank you, Ernesto, for always making time for me, for the many conversations we've had over the last 18 months. Look forward to many more discussions. And today is another opportunity to share some information, to tackle some of the tough issues and to move beyond some of the fear and even some of the myths that have been put around the social studies standards that are being proposed. Want to make sure that people know that opportunity for input is so important. Parents, educators, community members. We ask you to join in on a Zoom on Friday with the public education departments, and hopefully you can have the link that's provided. So that way we hear from people all across the state of the importance to their ideas and the thoughts of these new social studies standards. So that's what we're dealing with. The reality of it is the social studies standards haven't been updated in 20 years. That's a long time for standards not to be addressed. And I'm glad that the public education department is doing this, but doing it in a thorough way, that making sure that input is taken and that the opinions and the beliefs of others are being respected, valued, and hopefully further discussion.
Well, I'll tell you what, over 500 people have signed up for this. I'm sure it's going to get to much more than that by the time you get to Friday. And as some of the biggest things, and one of the biggest things that I think that everyone's trying to figure out, even the Albuquerque Journal put a great article out, was trying to myth busting some of these parts as well. The biggest discussion is being diversity. What is the definition as to what's going to change in diversity standards in 20 years that we're going to have now? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is a key point to this, is because the proposed new standards aren't subtracting, they're adding to the standards that'll take into account the many wonderful stories, the many wonderful cultural celebrations that we have within our state, and have students have an opportunity to see themselves, see their family members of where it is that they have developed who they are, and the opportunities to have those included in the standards. So I think it's a wonderful chance for New Mexico students to get up to date, relevant, and culturally important historical significance of how we are shaped here in the state of New Mexico.
Well, I'll tell you what, another couple of things that I think, well, if you're looking at adding, because like you said, have to be updated, that would also mean updating things such as 9/11, other stuff as well. And also even going to some of the stuff that we dealt with in the last 2 decades, because those standards aren't there. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. We've had different presidential administrations over the last 2 decades. We've had significant occurrences that have happened within our history. 9/11, as you mentioned, the capturing of Obama bin Laden, Mars rover landing on Mars, Hurricane Katrina, uh, having the opportunity to have the discussions of what has taken place throughout history, even looking to see that the Cubs did the impossible and actually won a World Series within those 2 decades. So I think that it's important that we have up to date, relevant curriculum, so that way our students have that relevant information and to determine what it is that they feel, how education can move forward. I think it's an absolute opportunity for improvement within our standards.
Do you think there's a fear among some New Mexicans because of the way our culture is right now and saying that there isn't enough diversity for one group and not enough for another, that this isn't really trying to focus on that? It's just trying to update us to where we are and not trying to say, hey, nothing happened before or after 2001 when America certainly changed.
That's exactly it. And that's why I wanted to have an opportunity to speak with you, to speak to many of the listening audience, to help calm some of those fears. I think it's important to recognize that I'm an educator and I know what it's like to be in that classroom. And I know how it is to have that information that you have to present, to do so in a creative and a way that's engaging. Our educators do that all across the state of New Mexico. Our parents, especially during COVID, have become more aware of the educational journey that our students take, because many of us have had to homeschool our kids during a very difficult pandemic time. So I understand that, but I also think that it's important that we recognize that as we move forward, that we understand that the input is so important, that we want to hear from parents. We want to make sure that we're respecting that. And then we're doing all that we can for that updated information to be presented. So this is definitely a win. Like you said, it's not subtracting anything, it's adding opportunities for engagement, for learning, and for the students to see themselves in the curriculum that they're learning.
Okay, so let me just throw some curriculum out there. You mentioned the Cubs winning a World Series. So then do we get to put in this part as well, Colin Kaepernick's protest of the national anthem? Does that need to be included in this social studies part as well?
So I think that those are the discussions that could take place, again, making sure that we recognize the professional work that our educators do, the creativity that they're able to have to make sure that they're addressing in creative ways to have dialogue, to have debate, to have opportunities for students to have information that's presented on both sides or all sides of the issue, and then determine for themselves what it is that they should think. And I think that that's key. So having the cultural, the diversity, the ethnicity portion into our standards give opportunities for those type of discussions, whatever it is that educator feels is so important for their students to learn, and above all to be critically thinking of how we can improve our society.
I think it's safe to say it's not like math where there's a certain standard that's been there. There's not like the new math that's coming out unless there's something that's being developed at a university. What you're trying to do is focus ahead, is just to try to keep things updated. That's the most important part of what you're trying to do. What kind of response are you getting from educators and teachers across the state? I'm sure they've got various inputs that have been coming in.
Yeah, and thankfully that I am very connected to the education community, and I hear from educators across the state. For the most part, it's been very positive, thanking me for taking a stand to help eliminate some of the myths and some of the fears that are out there. But I also respect educators across the state who have different opinion, who have concerns of some of the language, and that's why Friday's listening hearing is so important. So that way, those concerns can be addressed and they can be discussed, and hopefully take away some of the fear. We want to make sure that as transparent as possible. And I should mention that this is going to be through Zoom and have an opportunity for people to share their concerns. The Public Education Department has already committed that they're going to stay beyond 5 p.m. to make sure that each person is listened to. I think that's key. I know that there was some discussion of why is this Zoom? Why is it in person? Obviously, we have some concerns when it comes to the pandemic and the rising numbers. But I also think it's a positive, because me living in Silver City, you there in Donovan County, it's not as easy for people to leave their work. We're going to have educators who are going to be teaching throughout the day. You have people who work, you need daycare to be considered. This is an opportunity to really level the playing field and have people from all across the state of New Mexico give their input and have that valued dialogue take place. So I think it's a great opportunity that people should take advantage of Friday at noon.
Friday at noon, and this can go past 5 o'clock. How much does every speaker get a chance to speak on?
I don't know the exact parameters of what it is that the Public Education Department has made in regard to that, but I do know that there's the commitment to want to make sure that we're listening to parents. I'm a parent, and I want to make sure that the education that my kids get is the same education that other kids will get, the opportunity to critically engage in what it is that has happened over the last 20 years and even before that. So it's a great opportunity, and that's why I think it's important that I share some of the calmness that I feel is the positive of these standards that are being proposed.
All right. I tell you, this is going to feel like a long one. What a way to kick off the weekend. I'm sure you're just like, let's go right into it. But of course, these standards are something that need to be discussed. And of course, hearing from educators and everyone else. And I think trying to put people at ease anytime you can bring public comment and the public has a say, no doubt you don't want to miss out on your opportunity. Once again, if people wanted to sign up, how do they do so and how do they get involved in this part?
Yeah, I would go to the New Mexico Public Education Department website. The link that'll be on there will have you register for the event. Public comment can be taken now, as you mentioned. Over 500 people have given their comments, and I think it's helpful because some of those issues and concerns can be addressed, can be calmed. Others, we'll have further discussion. But I think, again, please be a part of the discussion. I know even some educators who contacted me with some concerns of it right now are putting together some presentations and a plan of things that could be considered on these proposed social studies standards.
Well, I appreciate, Lieutenant Governor, that you're giving a chance for New Mexicans to be heard, and that's why you're here discussing this with us today. This Friday will be very interesting to go through. And of course, it should be pointed out, you are yourself a former classroom teacher. You were in the Grant Public School District, and you still hold a PhD in curriculum and also from New Mexico State University, right? Am I correct on that?
That's correct. Many wonderful years there in the classroom and Cobre and Silver schools. Wonderful learning opportunities in my doctorate studies at New Mexico State University. Very proud of that, but more so, I'm proud that I can continue to be a voice for parents, for educators, and making sure that we can have the policy piece match what it is that our parents are wanting for their children. At the end of the day, we all want the best possible education for our children. This is an opportunity to do so in a relevant and updated manner. So looking forward to these standards. It's nothing new as well. And I just want to point that out. In 2017, under a different governor and a different public education department, we went through the same process. We adopted the science standards, a lot of debate, a lot of discussion. And once they were adopted, you haven't heard much about that. And that's the same process that we're going through here. And so it's part of the process. A lot of discussion that should take place. But I think at the end of the day, once the social studies standards are adopted, in whatever form that they're adopted in, our students are the ones that are going to benefit from this.
All right. I also got to talk about a couple of current events that are going on. And since you are talking with public educators in part, no doubt you're going to get bombarded by questions as well. We just read this morning some of the schools in the Deming area are shutting down because of COVID-19. And I'm saying shutting down in person, but going to remote learning now that we have the capability of doing so. Do you feel that this is going to become more of a trend as we see numbers spiking up, as we're one of the highest right now in the nation for increased numbers in COVID?
Yeah, we're seeing that happening. And I think the biggest concern that educators and school districts are dealing with is having availability of subs because of close contact or because of people not being vaccinated. Their educators aren't able to be in the classroom. And so I think that's the biggest concern. When I was traveling around the state, I went to the eastern part of the state. I've gone to all parts of New Mexico. The one thing that was asked is do whatever you can to get our kids back into school. If it's wearing a mask every day, then we'll do that. And we're back in school right now. And it's important that if we want to keep our kids in school, which I want my kids to be in school, face-to-face instruction is the best possible approach to learning. But we have to do the things that are going to keep them in school. Social distancing is still key. Making sure that we can wear a mask, making sure we're protecting one another. And then regardless of political beliefs, recognizing this is a health issue, that the vaccine has proven to be so instrumental in keeping people out of the hospital, keeping people from severe illness and death. We want to make sure that we can do all we can. So I want to put that plug in for people to make sure they get out there and get vaccinated because our hospitals are overloaded. Our schools are starting to feel the impact. And again, the number one thing that I heard a year ago was get our kids back into school. They're in school now. We must keep them there.
Are you and the governor working on any plan to have, let's say, vaccination setups at schools now that the Pfizer vaccine is approved for 5 to 11-year-olds? Is there a chance that the state will look at spending resource money and such to have like a COVID clinic at any of the public schools throughout any of our state and have those even wherever they can be? So therefore, families who may not have the ability to get their kids to get tested can do so?
Yeah, and I want to thank all of our school districts across the state who are doing all they can to work with the public education department, who just implemented a test to stay program, making sure that we can get students tested and to do so in a timely manner. But when the vaccine is rolled out for 5 to 11-year-olds, that was a huge relief for me, because every day weighing in the back of my mind was that my kids aren't fully vaccinated. They're not vaccinated because they weren't at the age level to do so. Now they are, we want to make sure and give every opportunity. Just as I dropped off my kids this morning at school, I saw at the local public health department that they were setting up to start doing some of those vaccines for children. I can't stress enough how important that is. This virus is one that's unpredictable. We don't know who it'll impact, how it'll impact, and what people may get impacted the worst, and even seeing severe illness and death. Don't take a chance. Get your kids vaccinated. Get yourself vaccinated. Let's keep our kids in school, and let's beat this pandemic.
Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales joining us. I want to go from the public education to the higher education system in New Mexico. Mandates are coming through. Students that have refused to get the vaccine have been let go from UNM. You obviously, yesterday in Las Cruces had around 40 people protesting the part of this mandate part as well. What message are you giving to higher education systems, and have you been in touch with the presidents at New Mexico, around New Mexico colleges and universities, to discuss the mandate part?
Yeah, so I just met on Monday with San Juan Community College out of Farmington. Had an opportunity to meet with Western New Mexico University and their administration as well. And I do appreciate that the universities are doing all they can to get students tested, get as results as quick as possible, but also promote the vaccine. I mean, the data has shown that those that are unvaccinated are extremely overloading our hospitals. Our healthcare systems can't take that. We're seeing that the majority of people, heavy majority of people that have passed away recently because of COVID, are unvaccinated. We have to do all that we can to make sure that we're giving every opportunity to get vaccinated. And I support the universities in wanting to make sure to mandate that vaccine. It not only protects those individual students and staff members, it protects every one of us, because we've seen now, because the Delta variant has been so unpredictable, that we see that people who are actually vaccinated are coming down with COVID, fortunately not having the severe symptoms, or not passing away. I think it's also important that we recognize that the longer that this virus is there, with people not vaccinated, the more chance for other variants to occur. So get vaccinated, and do so today.
All right. Lieutenant Governor, I want to leave us on last thing. I know you'll be walking around the state once again. I want you one more time to talk about this important curriculum meeting that's coming up, where to sign up so everybody knows, and therefore they're ready to go for Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that parents' input is valued. I want to put aside some of the, or make sure that people recognize, I understand the concern, I understand the fear, and I want to make sure and bring that confidence, knowing as an educator, as a parent, that it is updating the standards. It's not coming in as a political issue, but rather an educational opportunity for our students to see themselves in the curriculum, for our students to have the opportunity to have up-to-date material, which is so key when it comes to the world of academics. I also think that it's an opportunity to have healthy debate, healthy dialogue, and more so those critical thinking skills that our students so much need to operate in the real world. I think that the key to education is learning how to learn. And if we can give every opportunity for more dialogue, for more critical thinking, to learn how to learn in whatever environment you're in, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the community, learning how to learn and learning how to adapt is absolutely key. And this is the opportunity that we have in these social studies standards to update 20-year-old standards that need desperately to have those re-examined. And the last thing I'll leave with is, if you have a parent who has a student who's a kindergartner, the chances are more likely is that kindergartner that's in class today is going off of the same curriculum that that parent did 20 years ago. And that shows you the big chance and opportunity that we have to make those improvements.
All right. I want to thank you for your time. I know you're rushing there. Don't forget this segment is brought to you by our friends over at American Document Services. Save time, save money, and precious natural resources. Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales, look forward to talking to you. Sorry about your Dodgers. My Stros didn't win the World Series either, so I guess there's one positive on that. So,
yeah, thanks again, Ernesto. Really appreciate the time, and all the listening audience. Look forward to another discussion soon.
all right. From Mississippi Valley News, let's talk Las Cruces. I'm Ernesto Garcia.